Afternoon, everyone. My name is Barb Admiral-Polker, and I'll be sharing with you today the results of my marketing management class, in which I completed a marketing simulation using the tool called MarkStrat to evaluate and market the product Sonites to a group of end customers. This presentation is going to outline the successes and failures of a fictitious company that I led called Magneto Industries, so we can review the results over the course of the semester that were completed. So for the agenda for today, we'll look at the overall firm performance, and we'll look at it by the segments that we marketed to, as well as the financial results. We're also going to take a look at the segmentation and the targeting that I did of the products to the end customers. And at that point, we'll switch over and we'll switch gears and look at the marketing mix, and in particular, look at it from a product, price, place, and promotion standpoint. And then lastly, I thought it made the most sense to save the lessons learned for the end, so you can see how I arrived at those recommendations. So here's the overall high-level summary for Magneto Industries. This company operated over 6 periods, and they produced products called Sonites. Sonites, I think of them as cell phones or iPads or some sort of electronic device that we're marketing to end customers. Initially, we started targeting all the consumer segments and quickly realized that, I quickly realized that we had to target individual consumer segments instead of trying to go after them all based on the marketing funds and the capacity that I had to go after those segments. We started with 2 brands and we added a 3rd brand. So in total, I marketed 3 core brands to the end consumers. The brand Move was targeted towards the Explorer consumer segment. They're looking for a mid-price range product, and they're pretty price sensitive, and they prefer high-performance products. I saw quickly that my Move product wasn't positioned well to be able to be a high-performance product, and we'll talk about a little bit what I had to do to improve it. The Most brand was targeted to the shopper segment. Initially, we were targeting the savers with it, but spun off another brand in order to target the savers with it instead. And then the last brand, More, was really going after the largest segment, which were the savers. They're looking for a low performance, average convenience product, and they're pretty cautious spenders. They want a lowest price product, but there's a lot of savers out there to buy them. So how did my firm do overall, both looking at it from a segment and from an overall perspective? Well, we started out on equal footing with the 5 other companies in the industry, but right off the bat, I think I made a few poor decisions in the first period, trying to target too many brands, and as a result, I think our results and our metrics showed this. Moving into period 2 and period 3, Magneto played catch up with doing some R&D projects, but at that point it was too late because the other firms had already grown their market share and as a result grown their marketing spend. So we quickly became a small player in the marketplace. Now, had the class lasted longer, I think there would have been a good opportunity to catch up. But going into the 6th period and now leaving the 6th period rather, made some improvements, but still a long way to go. So overall, how do we do? Well, we finished in 5th place. Most started out strong, but faced some tough competition. More was introduced in the 2nd period and didn't have the brand awareness that I needed right away. So even going into the 6th period, I'm still growing the brand awareness. And Move really was just a weak product. I was considering phasing it out, but I introduced R&D instead. And that was a significant financial investment. But I think, as you can see in the results I'll share here in a moment, it started to pay off. From a segment performance perspective, Most targeted shoppers. We ended up in 2nd place for that segment. More, I targeted savers and ended up in 2nd place. And Move was 1st in the Explorer segment. From a financial perspective, how did we do? Well, a couple of things to highlight here quite obviously. As you can see, going in the 4th and the 5th period overall, we were losing earnings, so going negative, and as a result, my share price index significantly dropped. But as you can see, going into the 6th period, it did start to recover. And we were back to selling more volume than we had at the get-go. but again, not enough time for recovery. A couple of factors tied into why performance fell. One of them you'll see is the overall cost of goods sold for the products was just far too high for the number of products that were being sold. So that was a key factor. We also had high inventory selling costs as the result of the R&D projects. Had too much inventory that was holding on to that had to be sold, and as a result, it definitely ate into the earnings. You'll see that we did start to recover by the sixth period, and we're back to selling a higher volume, but by that point, there's still just a long uphill road to climb for improvement. So switching gears now to look at the company from a marketing perspective. So as part of our marketing plan, as I mentioned, we targeted 3 of the 5 consumer groups. The reason I selected those groups for a couple of reasons. One is, as you can see from the chart at the top of the PowerPoint slide, the savers market was forecasted to grow the largest in the next 5 years. So as a result, I knew that was one of the segments that I would go after. The second segment, of course, was the shoppers. And for the very same reason, it was showing to grow more significantly and had a larger customer base than perhaps professionals or high earners. So I decided to target those 2 segments. And lastly, I noticed by looking at the multi-dimensional scaling and the results of what the other firms were doing, by second and third period, I saw that no one was going after the explorers. So at that point, I thought it made sense to target them since the other groups weren't. So, so moving on here, looking at the 6th period results, a few key things to show you. One is from a segmentation strategy, I learned quickly that I shouldn't spend my advertising, media, and research on the groups that I wasn't interested in for my brands. So I quickly saw, since more was targeting savers, I focused all of my media and research and advertising dollars on the savers. I targeted the majority on the shoppers, but I still saw that some explorers and savers were buying most, so I did leave a little bit of the dollars with them. And move, I strictly targeted at the explorers because that was who I was looking for with that group. So from a positioning and targeting perspective, one key thing here is I did a couple of things to try to position my products better. So one of them is, as the MarkStrat indicated, is you can either advertise and use perceptual advertising to try to reposition your products, or B, you can use R&D to do so. Well, based on where I saw my products falling on the multidimensional map, I saw that I needed to, better address or better try to reach the ideal consumer segments and meet the preferences that my consumers had. So as a result, I opted to do 2 R&B products to reposition 2 of my products. But what I quickly learned is to reposition them, it takes a lot of time. I did those projects in the 2nd period, but the results really didn't start to show until the 4th or the 5th period. So there's a lot of ground that you have to make up by doing R&D projects. I also used perceptual advertising to reposition the products, but I learned quickly here that only reposition your products about maybe 5 or 10% closer to where you want them to be. So from a positioning and targeting perspective, I did target my brands, but it really just took longer to grow the consumer base that I wanted as quickly as I wanted. Just a couple other things that I've noted here on the slides around positioning and targeting. Really positioning applies to the 4 Ps, the preferred product for the targeted marketing segments. These two slides that you'll see here from the MarkStrat showed around from an expenditures perspective where where I was spending the commercial and advertising dollars, compared to the other firms. So I was about, in terms of expenses, you'll see I was on the lower end of that. Well, reason for that is I wasn't growing my revenue as quickly as some of the other firms, and as a result, my budget was lower. The lower your budget, the less opportunity you're going to have to spend more marketing dollars to be able to get more customers. So it was kind of a vicious cycle, as since my sales were lower, my marketing budget was smaller, and as a result, I could grow my market less. But I think had I have more time, would have grown quicker. So looking at it from a product, moving on now in the interest of time, looking at it from a marketing mix perspective, if you look at the products that I had, I really leveraged, as I mentioned, I leveraged 2 R&D projects to modify the product characteristics. I modified most significantly to target shoppers, and I modified move to target explorers with a performance change. So what you'll see here is, from over time, looking at period 0 and period 6,